Blueprint Approved Institute. Item number 13 is our contract with Primacy for legislative representation. Item 14 are contract amendments with Frederickson Government Relations and Momentum Advocacy for legislative representation. Item number 15 is a contract with the Harrison Neighborhood Association for anti-displacement services. Item 16 is a contract with Impact Mailing for utility billing mailing services. Item 17 is a contract with Solution Guidance Corporation for project management software. Item 18 is a contract with Clay Consulting for occupational health services. Item 19 is a contract with Tasks Unlimited for our city's low barrier employment program. Item number 20 is a contract amendment to complete our parking permit platform migration. Item 21 is a contract with Tyzek Concrete for the Shingle Creek West Americans with Disabilities Act PED ramps. Item 22 is a contract amendment with Restoration and Construction for the Hilton Ramp waterproofing project. Item 23 is a contract amendment with M&B for lead service line replacements, not lead, lead service line replacements. Item 24 is a contract amendment with Morcon for the Hawthorne office build-out project. Item number 25 is a contract with JL Thies for biochar production phase 1. Item 26 is a contract amendment with Safety Signs for rental of traffic control devices. Item 27 is a contract amendment with the Standard for life insurance, long-term disability, and FMLA administration. Item 28 is a contract amendment with Premier for electrical services. Item 29 is a contract with Minnesota Native Landscapes for our green stormwater infrastructure restoration project. Item 30 is a contract amendment with the Immigrant Law Center offering free immigration legal services to city residents. Item 31 is a contract amendment with Collins Brothers Towing for heavy-duty towing services. 32 is a contract with Axon for cloud-based patrol car evidence capture and digital evidence management. Item 13 has a change, different than what you will see on the agenda. Contract amendment with Shaw Lindquist for the City Hall Restack Phase 3 project. The total amount, the numbers were transposed. It's an increase of $302,382, not as it is shown in LIMS right now. Staff noticed an error and would like to change it. I will be moving to amend that amount at council, or Chair Wansley will. Item 34 is a contract amendment for computer-aided dispatch, CAD, and related mobile equipment support services. 35 is a contract with Short Elliott Hendrickson for engineering and design on the Logan Park Industrial Reconstruction Project. 36 are contract variants with various organizations for the Partnership Engagement Fund projects. One's an extension, one is a different fiscal agent, I believe. Item number 37 is a contract amendment with Keystone for classification and compensation consulting services. Item 38 is a contract amendment with Metropolitan Emergency Services Board. Item number 39 are collective bargaining agreements for the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 70, AFL-CIO. Item number 40 is a memorandum of understanding with the Greater Twin Cities United Way 211 service. Item 41 is a legal settlement of Natalia Paget versus the City of Minneapolis and Mitchell Erickson. Item 42 is a legal settlement of State Farm Mutual Auto Insurance versus the City of Minneapolis. And 43 is a workers' comp claim of William Palmer. Item number 44, Minneapolis Advisory Committee on Aging appointments. Item number 45 is the designation of polling locations for next year. Item 46 is a contract with the Link for Human Trafficking Advocacy, Training, and Survivor Support Services. Item 47 is a contract with Catalyst for a 311 management system, CRM. Item 48 are master contracts with eligible agencies for the Minneapolis Health Department. Chair Wansley and I are doing some additional work on that per a long meeting at AEO and some conversation and questions there. Item number 29 is the bid for Nicollet Avenue Bridge over Minnehaha Creek's rehab project, and that's a huge one in Councilmember Koski's ward. So with that, I can stand for questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Palmisano. Colleagues, given the time constraints and how we started this meeting late, I understand that there are other reports that we can be reading, but without objection, which means that you can all object if you wish, I would ask that all chairs and vice chairs be available to answer any questions after this meeting and before full council should you have any questions. Is that fine? I would like us to skip this part just because we have 2 public hearings and a variety of other issues, and we are running behind after starting late. No objections? All right. Thank you all. Okay. There are now 4 items in the total consent agenda. Item number 4 is approving 2 agreements with CUNY and NYU for their services, both contingent on federal approval. Item number 5 is authorizing a contract extension with Danny Murphy Consulting Services. Item number 6 is accepting a bid for reconstruction project of the 10th Avenue Bridge over Midtown Greenway. The next item is a walk-on item from the Health Department regarding a travel gift acceptance for Commissioner Damone Chaplin to attend the National Association of County and City Health Officials. Lastly, we have another walk-on item from the Public Works Department regarding another travel gift acceptance for Director Tim Sexton to attend the Advisory Network for Brookings State Local Transportation Initiative meeting. With that, I'll move these items for approval and ask if there is any discussion on the consent agenda in addition to the 2 walk-ons. No one is on cue. Oh, Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I had a question on number 5, the consulting contract with Danny Murphy LLC for settlement agreement. So I'm wondering if there's anyone from the Office of Community Safety who could answer a question about it. Otherwise, I can just reach out over email and try to get an answer by Friday or by Thursday.
Is anybody from the Office of Community Safety here? Councilmember Cashman, why don't you read your question for administrative follow-up, or also just...
Yeah, I just wanted to understand the financial implication of this, as we've been seeing a big overspend, and this is another $200,000 for consulting services for the settlement agreement. So I wanted to understand why this is necessary for compliance of the settlement agreement, and if there's a case to be made for approving this now, instead of looking at it a little bit deeper in the next term.
Thanks, Councilmember Cashman. City Clerk, was that question written down?
Yes, I believe so.
Great. So what I'll say is, if the administration could please follow up way before the full council meeting, just because we are in a tight timeline, and I want to make sure we're moving forward with the agenda. So, is that okay, Councilmember Cashman? All right. On the motion to approve these items, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstention? And those items carry. Okay, first, we will be receiving and filing public comment for the Ethical Practices Board appointment, Patrick Burns. And I will say that after this component, we are going to transition quickly to the Humane Encampment Response one, just because there is less people signed up for that one. And we want to make sure that more people can come into this room if they need to be. And then, so we'll go in that order. So first, if we can have the Ethical Practice Board appointment, I'll have Kuma Blake to speak on this item.
Good afternoon, Chair Chavez and council members. I understand that you have a full agenda, so I will make this as brief as possible. As you can see, that the appointing authority for the Ethical Practices Board is recommending the appointment of Patrick Burns. He has over 30 years, close to 30 years with the State of Minnesota Office of Professional Responsibility, which includes investigatory experience. And based on this experience, the appointing committee believes that he will provide excellent leadership to the board and will be a good asset to striving the ethical culture here in the city of Minneapolis. Mr. Burns is present and is available to answer any questions that you may have. So hopefully that was extremely brief. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much. I will now open the public hearing for comments. Clerks, has anybody signed up?
Nobody has signed up at this time.
If you wish to sign up, please come up here and sign up. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. I will now close this public hearing. Do any of my comments have any questions or discussion?
I'd like to move this for approval.
Has been moved for approval.
Second.
Has been seconded. Seeing no further discussion, I will now ask the clerk. Well, I don't think we even need a, yeah. Yeah, that's why I was like, never mind. Seeing no further discussion, I'll ask the clerk to now file those comments. Yeah. Okay. All right. Our next public hearing is going to be on the Humane Encampment Response Ordinance. This is related to encampment response, we will have our staff, Amy, pull up the presentation. Just to explain the process here, we're going to be giving you a presentation on this. We'll open it up for public comment, and then we're going to push it to the end of our agenda for a final vote, just because we want to make sure we have time for both public hearings, give enough time for people that aren't here for a specific issue, if you want to leave, for more people to come in. And then we're going to go into closed session and then have final votes after that, just so everyone understands the process for this. There's a lot of issues we're trying to address today. With that, I'll pass it to Council Vice President Chuck Tai.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I am really excited to be here to present with Council members Chowdhury and Chavez the Humane Encampment Response Ordinance. I want to start by setting sharing some context and setting some expectations around what you can expect from this presentation. The work to get to this place with this ordinance has been years in the making. Started back in 2022 when Council members Chavez, Chowdhury, and I, at that time Councilmember Chowdhury was an aide in the Ward 9 office, began working with the administration and community partners to establish more humane, compassionate, public health-centered response to unsheltered homelessness in Minneapolis. I know this is a topic that is really tough for everyone that is involved. I know it's really personal for everyone that is involved, and so just ask for an open mind as we continue through this presentation. We can move to the next slide. This ordinance is needed because it creates a standard operating procedure to addressing encampments where all parties involved, from the residents that are experiencing unsheltered homelessness to our contracted community partners and service providers, other jurisdictions, and the broader Minneapolis community can expect a standard that is consistent from encampment to encampment and staff to staff. This ordinance is guided by the principle of public health and a humane and compassionate approach, and has been driven by the best practices that we have learned from public health practitioners within our community and our state. And a key outcome and goal of this ordinance is increased collaboration between our jurisdictional partners at a governmental level and our service providers so that we are all working together to reduce homelessness and make sure every person has a dignified place to live. And I want you to know that everything that we're going to walk through today is a product of extensive engagement with service providers and with the broader Minneapolis community. Ready to move to the next slide. All right. So as we get into what are some of the changes that we're bringing forward, it's important that we're all on the same page about what the current practice is, what the status quo is right now, barring without this ordinance. So closures are happening of encampments without adequate notice given to residents that are living in encampments and in the surrounding community. In particular, for residents that are living in encampments, closures without notice lead to leaving people with no place to go and disruption in services with caseworkers that know to find their clients in the encampment that they're staying in, and disruptions with service providers being able to work with their clients. We know right now that there is no public health response that is a part of the city's approach to unsheltered homelessness. it leaves encampment residents and the broader the immediately surrounding neighborhood with dealing with health hazards, needle waste, human waste, trash, and this leads to examples where we see infestations happening, where we have like massive amounts of cleanup that end up costing the city an enormous amount of resources after an encampment is closed. And so this is a big part of why we want to make sure we have public health response here. Residents lose important information and belongings during closures. I know we've all heard some really heartbreaking stories about people losing access to life-saving medication and mementos that are incredibly meaningful. And our current status quo practice is incredibly costly from the law enforcement perspective and the MPD perspective because of the significant presence of law enforcement and the significant amount of overtime that is needed to carry out this type of law enforcement presence. This is a cost that is directly borne by taxpayers, and over the last 5 years, as Minneapolis has been dealing with the crisis of unsheltered homelessness, that this has cost taxpayers millions of dollars. Each closure costs tens of thousands of dollars. We're ready to move to the next slide, and I'll turn it to Councilmember Chowdhury, Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Thank you. So now we're going to be getting into the brass tacks of the policy. This is an overview for everyone. What the policy covers is a pre-closure notice, public health response, and then information on personal property storage, and then policy around the day of encampment closure. So we can go to the next slide. I'll be covering public health response that is brought within this policy. So in December of 2023, the Minneapolis City Council passed a resolution declaring unsheltered homelessness a public health emergency. And we set forward that resolution because unsheltered homelessness is a public health emergency, proven by numerous residents, both housed and unhoused, reaching out to city council members about the issues that they're experiencing that are impacting their life, their safety, their well-being. And we passed that resolution so we can take up policies that actually address the public health emergency, and this is one step towards that. This ordinance outlines and details a list of solutions for the city of Minneapolis that they are required to make to ensure that public health issues and concerns are addressed within an encampment. This allows unsheltered individuals to access basic human needs for sanitation and helps prevent the spread of disease and minimizes any adverse impacts that are experienced by them and also nearby neighbors or businesses. Within this policy, it is required that within 10 days of an encampment being in formation with at least 20 individuals, that the city shall administer and coordinate this public health-centered response. And some of the things that we are requiring as a response is installing and maintaining portable sanitary toilets, providing menstrual hygiene products, installing and maintaining portable hand washing stations, and then also alternatives, functional alternatives during below freezing temperatures, providing access to first aid, fire extinguishers, life-saving doses of naloxone with weather-safe storage, ensuring regularly scheduled, organized solid waste collection, installing and maintaining safe needle disposal supplies, providing timely, accurate written information in multiple languages about severe weather relief sites such as warming or cooling stations, including directions using public transportation, and coordinating with governmental and non-governmental partners to provide access to housing services and housing case management. The reason why we selected within 10 days is to allow for our staff to have the adequate time necessary to prepare for a public health-centered response. We also heard from fellow council members that they wanted a threshold in which this response would be deployed. From experiences with community members, experiences by council members, once you have an encampment that reaches about 20 individuals, those public health issues start becoming more and more adverse and the impact is widely felt. And all of the things that are listed and required as the public health response is really about ensuring life safety, ensuring that people have dignity, and also is reflective of the things that Minneapolis residents, both in encampments and outside of encampments, oftentimes request out of council offices in the city of Minneapolis, notably porta potties, notably solid waste collection, notably naloxone. And then we also have needs of people who may need a place to get wound care and have access to a case manager. And this is a touch point where the city is saying, yes, we will make sure that this is available to individuals so they can start seeking out the resources they need and move through the continuum of care.
All right, next up is the pre-closure notice, which could help individuals with time to relocate with their belongings. I'll just read what the language that we're including in this ordinance would be. It would say that no less than 7 days before an encampment closure, a pre-closure notice shall be prominently posted throughout the encampment site, and the contents of such notice shall be conveyed orally to those in the encampment, the residents of the encampment, present at the time of the posting. City staff shall maintain an updated list of community partners, and a copy of each pre-closure notice shall be provided to these community partners on the day of its posting. An encampment closure shall not occur if a pre-closure notice has been posted in accordance with this section. There is an exception to this component, where if an encampment closure is necessary due to an imminent threat to life, such as a natural disaster or fire, the encampment closure may occur without posting this pre-closure notice. But in case this would happen, the city must notify the encampment residents of adequate alternative housing or shelter space to ensure that folks have dignified place to sleep at night. The next part is regarding personal property storage, which is something that we have heard many of our constituents who are experiencing homelessness express the need for, to ensure that their belongings are safe and secure. Beginning with the posting of a pre-closure notice that I just spoke about previously, and until such time as encampment closure has occurred, the city shall offer free storage to encampment residents for any of their personal property that is located in the encampment site. These locations must be easily accessible by public transportation and accessible in the north side and south side green zones, which we have seen have impacts when it comes to unsheltered homelessness. The next component, it becomes about encampment closure. We have also seen the strain of our public safety resources when these encampment closures happen. So when it comes to law enforcement presence, the city will use the minimum number of law enforcement personnel needed to respond at every encampment closure to ensure the safety of the encampment residents, other city staff, community partners, and city contractors. And on the date and the timing of the encampment closure, there should be on the date and time listed in the pre-closure notice. Personnel trained in homelessness response shall be deployed by the city to the encampment site, notify the encampment residents that they must begin vacating the encampment site, and assist encampment residents in locating adequate alternative housing or shelter space.
Thank you. All right, so we are now moving to encampment closures. And here we want to talk to you about two primary things. The first being law enforcement presence, and this ordinance outlines that the city will use the minimum number of law enforcement personnel needed to respond at every encampment closure to ensure the safety of encampment residents, other city staff, community partners, and city contractors. This is driven by a couple of different things. The first, in something St. Paul has found a higher degree of success in than Minneapolis is the reduction of law enforcement presence and really minimizing the number of law enforcement officials that are present, and that it leads to better outcomes for all parties that are involved. The second piece of this, we did talk to you early on about, where things stand right now and the amount of MPD overtime that is incredibly costly, has also an additional impact on responding to 911 calls for service and additional core functions of police work. So, this is about the minimizing of law enforcement personnel present at closures is both beneficial from the perspective of getting to positive outcomes for the people that are impacted directly by an encampment closure, and it is a fiscal management and responsibility thing here where this has such a high cost to taxpayers. Then the second aspect of this is pre-closure notice and the timing of encampment closures. I know this is the subject of a lot of feedback from the community. I know this is something that we discussed extensively with jurisdictional partners and with service providers, community members, folks who have been impacted by encampment closures themselves. That the lack of notice is such a huge barrier. So this ordinance will require that the date and time of planned closure is communicated really clearly to people that are living at the site, and then that encampment residents are notified at the time of posting the pre-closure notice, so that they can begin figuring out what their next steps are going to be, and assisting encampment residents in locating adequate alternative housing or shelter space. A part of pre-closure notice is also that this assists our contracted social service providers and community partners in being able to work with residents experiencing unsheltered homelessness, living in encampments, on making those plans at a person-by-person, case-by-case basis, and giving them as much runway to make that a reality as possible. We can move to the next slide. Okay, perfect. And then here we want to make sure that responders are accompanied by personnel qualified in mental health services, and making sure mental health practitioners are also present at encampment closures to address the mental, physical, and emotional health needs of encampment residents. And knowing that MPD already has limited resources, this helps ensure that there's a minimal amount of law enforcement or law enforcement disruptions in services, and officers can respond to more urgent calls for service, and ensures that encampment residents have easily accessible resources that are available to them day of. I believe that is the conclusion of our presentation.
Thank you, Chair Chaktai, for finishing us off. All right, colleagues, our goal is to have discussion about this ordinance as a whole after closed session. So what I'm going to do right now is open the public hearing, and so we can let the public speak. So I will now open the public hearing, and as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, you have 2 minutes to speak. Our first person here is Nicole Mason.
Hello, good afternoon. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for putting this together. It is a step forward. I work every day along alongside community members who are directly impacted by the ongoing unsheltered housing crisis in South Minneapolis. I am here today because the ordinance before you does not offer real meaningful solutions to this crisis. Our relatives living outdoors are not choosing homelessness. They are navigating trauma, displacement, unaffordable housing, and systems that have not kept pace with community needs. Yet the ordinance focuses on restrictions and removals rather than safety, stability, and pathways to housing. This approach will not reduce homelessness. It will only push people further into the margins, making it harder for outreach teams and service providers to maintain contact, build trust, and connect people to care. We know what works. Minneapolis has evidence and partners ready to implement real solutions. Low barrier, culturally grounded drop-in warming center and shelter options, especially for Native community members who are impacted. Permanent supportive housing with wraparound services, mobile behavioral health and substance use response teams that meet people where they are, investment in Indigenous-led and community-led initiatives that have deep relationships and proven trust with unsheltered relatives. These are approaches grounded dignity, healing, and housing first principles, approaches that saves lives. If Minneapolis is serious about addressing this crisis, the ordinance must be paired with actual resources, timelines, and accountability measures to move forward long-term housing solutions, not short-term displacement. We have the knowledge, we have community partners, and we have responsibility to act with compassionate effectiveness, not experience. I urge council to reject or significantly
16 people signed up,
amend this ordinance.
To make sure that everyone has enough time to speak. The next person is Naomi Wilson.
All right. Greetings, Chair Chavez and council members. I agree with and echo everything my dear friend and colleague Nicole Mason said. We've been working on this ordinance for over 2 years. I've attended community meetings with my kids, emailed my representatives, pushed as hard as I can. In that same time, I've done mutual aid and built relationships with unhoused people who in this moment are disproportionately affected by both policing and ICE. I've heard from many of our unhoused community members that not only are they hiding from MPD, now they have to hide from the feds too. I'm here with the women who I've organized with for years to say we need more. We need to meet the moment in a meaningful way with permanent supportive housing and wraparound services. I want to believe in this ordinance. It's a first step. But in a city council that's entirely made of Democrats and socialists, we are failing to meet the moment, and we're failing to fight Trump's head cuts. Our unhoused neighbors deserve so much more than just a Band-Aid. My best friend is a social worker, and every day she has unhoused people crying in her office because there are not enough shelter beds, and they have to sleep outside without even a tent. I have people coming to me every week telling me that they can't even take a tent because MPD takes it as soon as they set it up. And so these people are sleeping outside with no tent, no shelter in the winter. There is not a single elected Republican in our city, and yet our homelessness policies are indistinguishable from Donald Trump's. I want so much more for our unhoused neighbors, and I believe that this body can do it. It's just going to take courage, and it's going to take buy-in from those of you who are not already working on it. Thank you.
Next up, we have Kristen Crabtree.
Good afternoon, Chair Chavez and City Council members. I want to echo what my colleagues and friends, Nicole and Naomi, said. I agree with everything that they stated. The community has come to the city of Minneapolis repeatedly asking for meaningful data-backed data-backed best practice solutions to unsheltered homelessness as recommended by national organizations like the National Homeless Law Center to be implemented here in Minneapolis over the past several years. We need the city to work constructively with multi-jurisdictional partners. As it stands today, without this ordinance, the city lacks any kind of codified policy that ensures response to unsheltered homelessness is done with care, and the result is a response that undercuts the work of our partners and, even more alarming, has deadly and violent impacts upon our neighbors who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness. The city wastes well over $330,000 every year on ineffective encampment sweeps instead of investing in our housing and services, prioritizing punishment over humanity. This costly practice perpetuates homelessness rather than disrupting it, and it hides homeless people rather than solving the issue of homelessness, and it disregards common sense, data-backed truth. Housing and support solve homelessness. Criminalization of poverty through displacement, incarceration, and destruction of already disenfranchised people's belongings only compounds trauma both on the people experiencing unsheltered homelessness and upon our community at large. This approach is disproportionately impacting survivors of sexual and domestic violence. It is disproportionately impacting Indigenous, Black, Brown, migrant, disabled, queer, and transgender neighbors, flying in the face of two resolutions that have been passed by this body. One, declaring homelessness as a public health emergency, and two, declaring unsheltered homelessness a public health emergency. At a time our federal government embraces ideological mandates and uses homelessness as a justification to take over our cities.
Thank you.
It is a
Thank you, Kristen. And thank you, Kristen. Now, I'm going to make sure, folks, when you do go over your time limit, we also will take public comment. If I'll ask the clerk to just name the email that people can submit public comments to make sure that those comments are received by the City Council. I just want to let you all know, I don't like cutting people off. We do have a lot of people in this chamber trying to testify on a variety of different issues that are really important to the community at large. We do have a timeline at a time that we have to leave out of here. We also have a budget that we need to pass tonight that we also are going to be discussing that is also addressing a lot of the issues that people are discussing here today. So I don't want folks to feel like I'm being mean by cutting people off. We just have a strict timeline to make sure we can pass both ordinances before the day ends. Thank you. The next person, and Amber, can you just read the email? I forget it sometimes.
It can either be council.comment@minneapolismn.gov or councilcomment@minneapolismn.gov.
Thank you. And then the next person is number 4, but the handwriting was a little hard to read, but it might be Ron W. Oh, hi.
Look, right there, on the street corner, in the alleys, on the exit ramps, under the overpasses, what we don't want to see. Our sons, our daughters, our nieces, our nephews, our aunts, our uncles, our grandparents. These are our lost relatives trying to find their way home. And we need to offer them, rather than the back of our hand, the heart of our humanity. The city's response to this public health issue to date has been disgraceful is the most charitable word I can come up with right now. It does not offer humanity to the persons who really need our care and comfort. So I do appreciate that it's a public health emergency, but there's better ways to handle this. A Vivo tiny house village First Nino Kasi at 25th and Bloomington. There's example after example about how to do this better, more progressively, and with more humanity. None of that has come out of City Hall, this City Hall, to date. So better is better, sure enough, and I appreciate that there's something on the table, but there's a long ways to go.
Thank you. For your time. Next up, we have Byron Richard, then Aaron Johnson, then Kate Vickery, and then Lissa Wood. And we'll be naming that way we can push along. But thank you all so much for being here. Welcome.
Hello, Chair Chavez and council members. It's good to be with you. I want to speak briefly in support of the ordinance. I think there's plenty of work to do, but I think this ordinance gives us the opportunity to begin to align our public governmental policy with the powerful and sustained work of residents that we've begun to hear about today, who spend hours of volunteer time and hundreds of thousands of dollars in support of our unhoused neighbors. On October 26, 2023, the Wilder Foundation counted 10,522 people unhoused in Minnesota. Many of those, or one of the fastest growing segments of that population, are senior citizens. Hopefully, the ordinance will provide us with practices that we can, with potential to help communities across the state and maybe across the country deal with, understand, and humanely respond to our unhoused neighbors. And I'm looking forward to extending our instinct to care to our immigrant neighbors in the upcoming separation ordinance discussion. Thank you so much.
Aaron? I saw you here. Yeah, awesome. So we Aaron, and then we have Kate Vickery, then Alyssa Wood, then BJ, and then Sarah Anderson.
Hi, all. 6 years ago today, on December 9th, 2019, I survived a stroke in Los Angeles. It happened a day after I returned from my first trip to Disney World, Florida, and I apparently caught one of the first cases of COVID. It interacted with my autoimmune disease. Nobody knew it existed yet when it was happening, so they didn't believe me in the emergency department. It was in the middle of the night. I woke up and I was having a stroke. And I was wearing beat-up sneakers, just kind of a beat-up shirt, just something I threw on. And they thought that I was on drugs, I was homeless, because I was slurring my words, because I was having a stroke. And keep in mind, I went in saying, I think I'm having a stroke. That was my first words. I spent the next 19 hours surviving being picked up, thrown on the ground, yelled at to walk home. Haldol, it's an antipsychosis, was injected into my IV. And it was a big experience. They ultimately forged my signature on a discharge and tried dumping me onto the curb in Skid Row. And where I'm going with all of this is, if you think that's an inhumane way to treat a person who's experiencing an emergency that paralyzed me from the neck down, our city is intentionally doing this to our residents. They are suffering, and we come in and we scatter them into the street. I encourage you to pass this. I am also a victim of the HSS fraud, and I have no housing program. 21,000 disabled Minnesotans just lost their HSS. There's nothing. So in addition to this, we need a city program that's going to give people like me just any support at all, because there's literally nothing. I barely qualify for GRH. That you can't make more than like $1,200, but our city considers $2,000 the deeply affordable. Thanks. So make sense of that.
Thanks, Aaron. You have Kate Vickery. Hi. And then as a reminder, next up will be Alyssa Wood, BJ, and then Sarah Anderson.
Hi, all. I'm Kate Vickery. I'm a resident of Ward 11. And I just want to make a connection between the two ordinances that are being discussed today. The instinct to evict encampments is part of the same lack of consideration for human dignity as an ICE raid, and I think there's a really important connection to make between the two issues that are being discussed today. I think this ordinance is a step. There are some good things in here, and it feels not enough. And I feel like calling an encampment a closure or a clearing is a euphemism. These are evictions, pure and simple. We're rounding up and expelling people from a temporary shelter. And encampments are certainly not the solution to our housing crisis, but failing to provide adequate public health accommodations and an actual place for people to go after a clearing is not a solution. Every eviction is a separation of humans from their belongings and their dignity. And we really need clear policies and procedures. And there are two things I would say that are really missing from this piece that I witness in my time as a resident of Minneapolis. We are fencing the areas where we are clearing people from, and we are dumping concrete blocks in the lots where people used to be in tents, in whatever shelter they have. Those two things are inhumane and unacceptable, and those pieces should absolutely be added to this. Thanks.
Alyssa Wood, BJ, Sarah Anderson. If Alyssa, and I might be saying it wrong, it was hard to read, the last name was for sure Wood, or Woob, W-O-O, and I can't tell if that's a B or D. All right, if you were number 8, you are up. Otherwise, we'll go on to number 9, BJ, and if you end up coming, you will still get your spot. BJ, number 9. All right, again, if you end up coming, you will have your spot, but we'll move on to the next person, Sarah Anderson. Welcome, Sarah.
Bonjour, good afternoon. I'm here to express my concern about the encampment ordinance and its impact, especially on Indigenous people who are disproportionately affected and among the most vulnerable. As people whose ancestors are original to this land, we have a responsibility to treat all community members with dignity and humanity. Even with good intentions, the ordinance still allows displacement. Camps can be cleared with as little as 7 days' notice. This is not enough time to secure housing, recover belongings, or maintain stability. People lose their community, their safety, and their dignity. This is not humane. The numbers make the problem clear in 2024. Hennepin County reported nearly 4,000 people experiencing homelessness, including 500 living unsheltered. With hundreds of them Indigenous, statewide Native people and people of color make up nearly 70% of the homeless population. These communities are disproportionately affected by encampment policies. At the same time, the city spent over $330,000 in 6 months clearing 17 encampments, with more than 80% going to police enforcement instead of housing or supportive services. Even with the ordinance's improvements, enforcement-driven clearings continue to destabilize people and divert resources from long-term solutions. A truly humane approach must go further. Permanent housing pathways, culturally grounded services, mental health and addiction support, and outreach led by organizations who understand these communities. Real solutions reduce trauma rather than repeat it. Our unhoused residents, many of them vulnerable, deserve dignity, safety, and stability. They deserve more than short notices, repeated displacement, and policies that prioritize enforcement over humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mark K, then Levi, I think that might be an I, then Christopher, and then Hamoudi Sabri. Mark, you may have seen your number as number 1, but technically you're number 10. Mark Kallenbach, it's hard to read the spelling. If Mark is not here, we will proceed on to Levi. Levi? If Levi is not here, we'll proceed to Christopher. I'm just trying to make sure if there's people in the other overflow room in case. Hello, welcome. Yep. You're next. And again, for the public, if you missed your slot, just come back before we close the public hearing to make sure that you can speak. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Christopher LaBeouf. I am a new member of this community. And I wanted to say that I believe a measure of a community is measured not by its greatest accomplishments, but how they treat the neediest among them. On September 15th, I and so many other members of our community came together to offer assistance. Who came together to offer assistance bore witness to how Minneapolis treats the neediest among us. The people of the Lake Street encampment, despite having suffered the trauma of homelessness, despite the harrowing of the shooting that took place in their community, despite having been evicted from their shelter against their owner's will, all they asked was simply to have their belongings returned to them. Instead, they watched as their belongings were thrown into dump trucks like trash. I heard one of your aides out in the hall say we are a friendly city and we wouldn't be doing good governance if we weren't friendly. That is what I had hoped when I moved here from deeply Republican Texas, but that is not what I saw that day. I don't believe that the inhumane treatment of the homeless population I believe that the inhumane treatment of the homeless population is a bipartisan issue. Neither Republicans nor Democrats seem to care enough about the neediest among them. Homelessness is a failure of government. It is the end result of failed policies, corrupt systems, and greed. Again and again, we have seen in other countries, other communities, other cities, and even right here in Minneapolis, social policies that address these issues: housing, nutrition, education, addiction, and mental illness as systems or as symptoms of a failed system and not as illnesses that need to be purged. The humane encampment response is a good first step, but it is only the first step, and there needs to be more done.
Levi. After that, it'll be Hamoudi Sabri, Jada Brown, Nina Bergland. If you didn't hear your name, please sign up if you wish to speak.
Hi, my name is Levi Invick. I live in the Longfellow neighborhood. Although I think this ordinance is like a tiny baby step in the right direction, I think it ultimately does not adequately address the issues we're facing in our city. At the end of the day, it still allows encampments to be swept, which causes lots of psychological harm to our neighbors. There's been tons of research on this. For example, the American Public Health Association has documented that this causes extreme distress for people. We know that overdose deaths increase after an encampment sweep. People are losing their valuables, and it ultimately is just like inadequate as an ordinance if we are not going to stop this inhumane response to our neighbors. A 7-day notice is not enough, as other people have said. I've done encampment work in St. Paul, and when they get days, weeks notices, like it's still not enough. People are still there. They have nowhere to go. You're essentially telling them they have to leave their home. That's where they've decided to live, and that's where the city has ultimately had them live because there's not housing or shelter options for them. And also the section on minimum police, there's no way to enforce that. You're just saying, oh, there's going to be a minimum number of police. I don't know how we're going to enforce that. The cops show up, they harass people. Having that number for services will just encourage police to target people even more. I have been witness to a single tent where cops were called and 3 squad cars pulled up for one single person. So I don't know how you're going to address or hold police accountable to their inhumane treatment of our neighbors as well. As far as documenting the stuff that's getting taken from them, that seems like a logistical nightmare. I don't know how you're going to hand someone a receipt of these are your belongings when they have no place to store their safe documents. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mark, who I believe is here now. And then again, it's Hamoudi Sabri, Jada Brown, Nina Bergland, and that is all we have signed up for now.
Yeah, is it okay? Thank you for calling me. I was downstairs earlier. I'll make this really brief. Mr. Sabri would like my 2 minutes if he's willing, if he could have it. If not, I'm ready to go myself.
Feel free to go. Mr. Sabri is signed up as well.
Okay. My pitch to you this afternoon is a little different than from what you've heard. The ordinance, as it stands on its face, is fine. I think the notice provision is 7 days is a little light, but we can all debate that. The bigger issue is how we solve the problem. And we all agree there's a problem. And let me make this suggestion. I would like to direct your attention to a book, Measure What Matters. It's written by John Doerr. John Doerr oversaw and consulted for a little company known as Google. They grew from nothing to what Google is today. May I suggest that the City Council consider employing deploying a mechanism which involves not just the city, not just government agencies, but our own private citizenry together with their resources as well. We have Fortune 500 companies here. We have all kinds of talent. And you know what? I look around this room. I don't see one, not one, representative from a Fortune 500 company that could bring a whole bunch of help to this very, very serious problem. Let me suggest that the city consider appointing, kind of like, I hate to use this word because I'm not a fan of his, but a homeless czar. Let's get everyone involved cradle to grave and see if we can find a solution to the problem. Everything I've heard today is true, but you know what? I haven't heard any solutions. Maybe that comes from a joint endeavor, public and private as well. Finally, the beautiful thing about the book that I've directed your attention to functions on a management principle known as objectives and key results. We can set objectives, we can measure those with key results, we can follow up with CFRs, communication, feedback, and recognition. Thank you very much. Good luck to everyone.
Thanks.
Very serious.
Next up, we have Melissa Bree. After that, Jada Brown, Nina Bergland. And then we'll close the public hearing after making one last call.
I'm already here. 2 minutes is not enough, but I'm just going to give you finish what my lawyer is saying. The city is really good at giving those Fortune 500 taxpayers money. So you're really wasting money by cleaning and we're not going to get into that. But solutions. You guys have to wake up. The game is over. You guys have to wake up. The people need to know what you guys are doing. You're making the police look really bad in the community. How? Because you guys make the decision. They don't know that the police is just a enforcement agency. Just like the homeless, they don't like cops. I don't want to talk about the rest of it because I heard a lot of people talk about when the homeless encampment got shut down, people living in Hiawatha everywhere. I have pictures. Enrique's here. Ask him. Have his email, text messages, all the pictures that I've been sending him. We need solutions. You guys have to make a solution. You can't play that game with us as citizens and not do your job because you're destroying the city. Every council member have a couple people who's got policies. We don't need policies. We need solution. You're killing businesses. Your policies is no good. Even with the tobacco, anything you guys do is wrong. You got to wake up and have some steady time that you give the community. I don't see it. You need to start getting how to solve the issues of the homeless. All of you talk. How much money do we spend? A lot more than you guys are putting in the budgets because I don't think you guys are truthful. You're not being honest to the citizens. A lot of you been around, I've been around for a long time developing. And I know a lot. You don't want to take advices. You guys are just new kids in the block. You think you're going to know how to run the city. I don't think you have the qualification to actually run a city. Not your mayor and not you guys, because I haven't seen you doing any action more than just barking. See you later.
All right, next up, Jada Brown and then Nina Bergland.
Hi, my name is Jada Brown. I'm currently a resident of St. Paul, but I was a resident of Minneapolis the past 10 years. And I saw the Wall of Forgotten Natives go up. And since then, there has been a constant presence of encampments, but there also has been a constant presence of violent closures of those encampments. I do support that this ordinance is centering public health, as that just needs to be central to caring for our unhoused relatives, but I do believe and I do advocate for more steps that are being taken, especially during this time of federal terror. It's driving more and more people with the lack of funding to our disabled relatives and to mothers and to children, it's driving more people into the streets and being unhoused. And so if there's not the wraparound services and taking all of these steps, and not just the first step of public health, but just going forward with more and more steps to adequately care and offer wraparound services and housing, I think there's really deeper seated issues at hand, such as housing. There's so many housing barriers that keeps our relatives on the street. But I think there just really needs to be an end to sweeps, and I encourage you to. Okay, I think there just really needs to be an end to sweeps because it makes our relatives feel like they're unwanted, and if you don't have if you don't have a good sense of self-esteem and being welcomed, then I think it's really hard to find those services. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Lastly, we have Nina Berglund.
An betu a stemme da gapi, wanachi tawa chipui hemie na meo metnet na hashove. An betu kile mi chante washte na bechu zapi. Hello, everybody. My name is Nina Berglund. I'm also known as Northern Lights Woman and appears in the Morning Woman. I'm Northern Cheyenne and Oglala Lakota, and I am native to these lands that you are currently on, that you have been occupying. I am here to remind you all where you are. De Dakota Makoche, you are on the land of the Dakota people. That this is Dakota land and the Anishinaabe. So you should all be ashamed on how you have been speaking and how you are referencing our relatives, where you are. You are near the Wadote, the place of where our people came from, the epitome of what human life is, and this is how we are talking about our relatives. Our relatives deserve respect and to be treated in a humane way, and yet the way that we see our relatives treated is with disrespect, and they have not been treated in ways in which we support our elders, our women, and our children. That the violence that is happening at the hands of not only the Minneapolis Police Department, but all people of Minneapolis, because it's the conversations that are being had at the hands of our babies, at the hands of our children. It's what they are witnessing, the constant violence. I have my own relatives, my brothers, who have been on the streets where I had to help them because of these sweeps and the violence that have occurred, the trauma that they've endured, and the disrespect, the distaste for their human life. This is in pattern with what not only the Minnesota government has had and exemplified, but the United States as a whole. They stand on our graves. That when you're talking about the places in which that you stand, remember where you are. Remember who you're talking about. You're talking about our relatives, Indigenous, Black and Brown relatives, that these are my people, that these are my lands, and you better act respect as such. Wopila.
Colleagues, members of the public, I'll ask if anybody else still wishes to speak to please sign up to make sure you are having your voice heard. All right. With that, I will now close the public hearing. We will move this discussion until after receiving closed session, but I'd allow Council Vice President Chugtai if you want to say a few words before we do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to just thank the members of our community that have come here today to offer testimony on this matter. I see several people who have been a part of helping shape this ordinance, whether it was through attending a community engagement session or being a part of the discussions and helping make connections with those who are working directly as social service providers to our unsheltered relatives. And I'm looking forward to the discussion later in committee. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and I'll pass it to Vice Chair Chaudhry, as well as an author.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I just wanted to thank everyone that came and testified, and then everyone else that got a chance to bear witness to this conversation. I think it is inextricably linked to the conversation that we're having about protecting our residents from state-sanctioned violence. It really is. These are the things that rip people's lives apart. And I think a point that someone made that really resonated with me was that our policies are feeling and looking indistinguishable from the Trump policies from the federal government, and that this lack of care and also political will to address unsheltered homelessness to help our Indigenous relatives, our Black, brown relatives that are struggling disproportionately in our city, that lack of care transcends party. It's Democrats, it's Republicans, and it's at the city level, and I hope it's at Minneapolis where we start making meaningful strides, where we see a moment in time where people have an opportunity to live somewhere that is not an encampment, because people aren't choosing to live in an encampment. They have reached a point in their life where that is their only option. And so thank you so much again for testifying. And I understand, I totally hear that this is just one baby step, right? This is the very, very tip of a huge iceberg that we need to tackle. And I look forward to being a council member who will work on this in the next term. And I hope my colleagues will join me, and my colleagues not only here, but in our community, across the state and the county.
Thank you. With that, as I mentioned earlier, we're moving this to discussion after our closed session. We just want to make sure that public had enough time to weigh in as we move with this policy. With that, I want to clarify, I did close the public hearing, correct? I want to remember that. Okay, thank you. Great. Our last public hearing is the separation ordinance. This is related to employee authority. Oh, there we go. That's exactly what was missing. I want to make sure that Councilmember Wanzi is reflected on the consent agenda and the vote on the receive and file.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I'm a aye.
Without objection on the motion to vote on the receive and file and the consent agenda. Great. Okay, thank you. Okay, our last public hearing is a separation ordinance. This is related to employee authority in immigration matters, specifically Title II, Chapter 19. Vice Chair Chowdhury, Council Vice President Chugta, and I authored this ordinance, and we'll be presenting this item before opening the public hearing. So now that we have the presentation in here, we want to make sure that the public understands a few things. The ordinance you see in front of you was introduced last month with initial language. Those are in underlines. You will see then yellow parts highlighted. Those are new amendments that we're bringing forward today. We just want to make sure that you understand what the process is like. So underlines are language we introduced when we first introduced the policy. We had further conversations with the community, brought new language that is in yellow through various conversations with the community. We want to talk a little bit about the situation at hand and what we've been seeing with federal agents and ICE in our street, not only Minneapolis, but across the state of Minnesota, where we have seen Somali citizens detained. And I'll say that, Somali citizens detained. We have seen Latino citizens stopped and asked where they are from. And we have seen our relatives, our neighbors, our friends, our loved ones stopped and put into deportation proceedings by this cruel immigration system that is just tearing families apart. So we at least wanted to start with the situation at hand, what we are experiencing as a community here, not only Minneapolis, but across the state. We are bringing forward this ordinance for a variety of reasons. Them being a hostile federal government, city auditor review findings, community demands and engagement, and our commitment to immigration justice. We know that when it came to the auditor review, on August 5th, the city auditor presented an after-action review of the June 3rd Lake and Bloomington federal operation. In his presentation, he stated that the City Council and Mayor's Office should develop communication sequencing protocols to notify council leadership during incidents of great public interest, especially those that could lead to civil unrest, and that the separation ordinance was first adopted in 2003 and has not been updated to address the contemporary federal immigration enforcement actions. The City Council should review the separation to consider potential updates. So we want to make sure that this is following an after-action review. But most importantly, we have heard for a variety of years now from our immigrant and immigrant-led organizations on the need to make sure that we have an updated separation ordinance, which is the work that we as authors have been trying to do. So, what is this an ordinance? Here's a quick overview. We're hoping to strengthen the city separation ordinance. We are making changes to the policy and purpose section, uplifting city values, and supporting our immigrant and refugee communities. We have components when it comes to general city services, so clarifying city resources and personnel will not be used for immigration enforcement and requires all city staff to be trained on the ordinance. We're updating components for public safety resources, clarifying the governing requirements for public safety services. We're adding a section on public safety reporting, so requiring a report to the council and the public by the administration with federal agencies request assistance from the city of Minneapolis. We're adding components when it comes to complaint and discipline, so reporting data on complaints and detailing protections residents have when reporting a violation, and adding a part that it will not have an impact on private rights.
Thank you. So next, we will just start diving into the policy. For community members, I just want to give you the heads up. We're going to get a little bit into the weeds here. It's going to be technical and wonky. We have been working really closely with our city attorney's office to ensure that we have strengthened our separation ordinance as much as possible. So just bear with us as we go through this process. And then if you have any clarifying questions, I encourage you to reach out to us and reach out via public comment or reach out directly to your council member. And we will be happy to just clarify what any of this means in that way. So for the first part, 19.1, we're looking at the purpose and policy statement. What I really see as the changes that we've made here is bringing our purpose and policy as a city to our current time, modernizing it, and ensuring that it's reflective of our values and really states clearly that we, as the city of Minneapolis, will not be doing the work of the federal government as it relates to immigration enforcement. So some things that I want to highlight that are within this purpose is that we state all Minneapolis residents, whether they're U.S. citizens, permanent residents, undocumented residents, refugees, asylum seekers, or residents with any other immigration status, they are valued and integral members of our social and cultural economic fabric. The city of Minneapolis will be prioritizing using its limited, finite resources to advance the health and safety of its residents. And if our city personnel were to enforce federal immigration laws for the federal government, it would squander the limited municipal resources we have and have adverse effects on public safety and a chilling effect on our immigrant populations willing to report crime and cooperate with our city's public safety efforts. The other part I'll highlight is that our commitment to building a welcoming and respectful atmosphere where all people are welcome and accepted is reiterated here, that enforcing federal immigration laws alongside federal agents who lack clear agency identification and who are masked or otherwise concealing their identities or badges would be contrary to the values of the city and harmful, absolutely harmful to the trust and the public safety of all city residents. The city will not act or operate its programs for the purpose of enforcing immigration laws, enforcing federal immigration laws. Additionally, it is the policy of the city to vigorously oppose any effort to require the use of city resources for the enforcement of federal immigration laws. This ordinance, which codifies the separation between city activities and immigration enforcement activities, helps to prevent that chilling effect. We can go on to the next slide. So in this section, we are really laying out that the city, other than complying with lawful subpoenas or required by law, is actually the change that we're making in our amendment, shall not use city facilities, properties, monies, equipment, technology, or other city resources for federal immigration law enforcement. This was something that was really important to get across in our separation ordinance so that none of our resources as a city are being used in any shape or form. The other part of this is in the packet that's available to you members and the public, is that we really lay out that there needs to be a properly issued judicial subpoena or other compulsory legal process if the city of Minneapolis is being asked by the federal government to give any information. And then we also lay out in this section that the city shall provide information and training in the new employee training and ongoing training regarding the expectations within the separation ordinance. Right now in the city of Minneapolis, we don't have this ongoing education to all of our city employees, a lot of our frontline employees of our separation ordinance, right? We want to make sure that our workforce knows that this is our policy first and foremost, and this is how you comply with it. And then we are also amending in today that the training at a minimum must include this ordinance, but also related city policies and procedures, the difference between administrative and judicial warrants, the difference between public and non-public city spaces, including access limitations to non-public city spaces, guidance on responding to inquiries or actions by federal immigration authorities, including requests for information regarding city employees, members of the public, and requests to access city property or city-sponsored events. The process for rapidly contacting appropriate city officials in urgent situations, and training for supervisors and managers on their responsibilities, just really making sure as a whole, the city enterprise, the city organization, that everyone is on the same page. And if there are federal immigration enforcement actions that happen, what to do or where to go to, who to talk to, and making sure that this is something that occurs regularly, annually, I believe is what we're hoping to set forward. And then we can go to the next slide. This section is codifying in our separation ordinance that city-owned or city-controlled parking lots, ramps, vacant lots, garages that are not open to the public without restrictions, those cannot be accessed by federal immigration law enforcement and state and local. And these restrictions apply without, these restrictions cannot be, what's the word that I'm looking for? They can't be pursued without a judicial warrant or having some sort of legal compulsory document or anything that is related to that. So there's just putting some really clear barriers on how our city property and non-public city spaces can be accessed. And I want to just kind of lay out some examples of non-public city spaces that we're saying that is restricted for immigration customs enforcement and as a part of our separation ordinance is including places that are employee-only areas, break rooms, workstations, again, those vacant lots, parking ramps, areas that aren't just generally open to the public, right? So non-public city spaces. We can go to the next slide.
All right. On public safety services, here the most important thing to know, and so number 3, number 4 on this slide, that exists in the ordinance as it was posted online, and then what you see in the blue box is the additional amendments that, for colleagues, you'll see highlighted in yellow. So on this, the key takeaway is, first, we want to further clarify that our public safety officials here in Minneapolis do not have any type of role in enforcing federal immigration, civil immigration law. So that includes not doing so in carrying out other aspects of their jobs, like traffic stops or the creation of or participation in checkpoints. So none of that is allowable as part of this change. Additionally, there are other ways outside of law enforcement through which we, or through outside of immigration law enforcement that we interact with or work with the federal government and different federal agencies. What we want to make sure is that whatever those mutual aid agreements look like when we are in any type of relationship with federal law enforcement agencies, that we cannot enter into any of those agreements if they require any type of participation in civil immigration law enforcement. So that's just additionally clarifying this piece and making sure that we're not delegating additional authority to work with federal agencies. And then the additional amendments to this section highlighted in yellow clarify which type of agreements the city shall not enter into with the federal government. And this is, a product of a lot of discussions and back and forth with the city attorney's office to get to this section being revised the way that it is right now. We can move to the next slide. I think, so now we're going to get into talking about reporting. I'll take a section of this and then Council Member Chavez will continue. So, I think based on the experiences of within our city over the last several months and over the course of the summer, and the findings from the after action review that the city auditor conducted, additional reporting is included in this revised ordinance change. And really, what we're doing is we want to make sure that anytime public safety personnel are deployed in relationship with federal agencies, that the administration then files a report with the mayor that is given to the mayor, the city council, and then made public to the extent practical and possible. That this report includes understanding who is initiating the request and the source of the request, a detailed description of the decision-making process that led up to the deploying of public safety officials, the timing of deployment, and the timeline of events, and the number of personnel that were involved, total hours, number of arrests that were made and why, and ultimately the cost to the city in terms of additional overtime hours or whatever it may look like. So I will now turn it to Council Member Chavez to continue talking about public safety reporting.
Thank you. And I just want to make sure the public is following along. When you see 19.40 public safety reporting, B, C, D, E, F is language that we included in November. So we set a public hearing with this new language. The blue part should be highlighted in yellow. So it might tackle a variety of different language in the report. I just want to make sure everyone understands where we are at. The blue is new language. It is highlighted in yellow in the packets that should be up in the front. So when it comes to the public safety reporting component, we added more components to it that you can see in B, C, D, E, and F. We will also be bringing an amendment, or that is encompassed, it's underlined in yellow, that will be introduced to ensure the City Council is notified of immigration enforcement as soon as possible once administration becomes aware. This is really important because this was something that was discussed in the City Auditor's report during the Lake and Bloomington raid on June 3rd. But yeah, so this is just about the continuation of public safety reporting. We want to make sure that we as a city council have access to this information so we can discuss this important topic that comes before our body. And then the last part, it's when it comes to complaints and discipline, we're adding language that includes summary data on the number and disposition of complaints must be reported to the City Council by June 30th and December 31st of each year. If a complaint is filed with the city alleging a violation of this chapter in the course of investigating the alleged violation, no complainant or witness shall be compelled by the city investigating authority to provide their immigration status. That is really important for us as authors because we want to make sure that we are good with our data and we're not accidentally exposing anybody. And then the last part is that the city must preserve all data relating to complaints under this section for at least 12 months after the complaint is closed. We will also be introducing an amendment to ensure there is a reporting mechanism for the public to report alleged violations of the ordinance by employees.
All right. So now we're looking at the latter part of the ordinance. We have a section called Compliance with Federal Law. It just simply states the city and its departments and employees will comply with federal law, including 8.USC. And this is just statutes that are governing. Sorry, I lost my place. I will come back to that. That is the valid federal law that the city of Minneapolis agrees and complies with and has to comply with. That is not enforcing federal immigration laws and enforcement, right? The other part that I will note and mention earlier is the section that we added around subpoena or other legal obligation. It's stating nothing in this chapter prohibits city employees from responding to a properly issued judicial subpoena and other compulsory legal process or data requests when and to the extent that a response is required by law. I think this is really important because one thing that can occur is the federal government for immigration customs enforcement can say, hey, City of Minneapolis, give us this information, we need it. And we get to say, well, there's a judicial and legal process that you have to go through in order to get it. Or you have to do the Freedom of Information Act like anyone else and do a FOIA request and wait however long it takes to fulfill that data request. Ultimately, the thing that we want to do is make sure that the data that we collect is keeping the safety of all residents in mind, right, as the city of Minneapolis, and thinking about our data retention policies. And then the last part, section 19.8, it just states no impact on private rights. Nothing in this chapter in any way limits an individual's rights or remedies under existing laws. And with that, I will pass it back to Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Chair Chowdhury, Vice Chair Chowdhury. The only thing I'll add, the component about the compliance with federal law, that's just information that the city is just required by federal law to abide by this, so we're just adding it to the ordinance. So doesn't really change much. With that, colleagues, there are around 40 people signed up. We have to get out of here by 5 p.m. if I'm correct. We have two closed sessions. I think one thing I want to ask is, I think taking the public testimony time to 1.5 minutes instead of 2 minutes. I in no way want to stop people from speaking, but we won't be able to pass the ordinance without getting through everybody speaking today. So we have no transcribers to be able to transcribe what people are speaking after 5 p.m., and we have to figure out our budget meeting as well. So I guess that's just, without objection, I'm going to say that that's the pathway we're going to take. So with that, we will now open the public hearing, and our first speaker is Rick V.
Good afternoon. My name is Rick Van den Dolder. I live in Ward 13, and I'm a member of Unidos. I'm here to ask that you support the proposed amendments to strengthen the separation ordinance to protect our community from the attacks from the federal agencies, including ICE. I'm the son of immigrants. My wife and I have foreign-born friends, some of whom live in the United States. We're very concerned about a close friend who fled for his life from Iran years ago. Last month, he was ecstatic to receive his green card. He's broken no laws. He's done nothing wrong since he came here 4 years ago. But as we all know, he's still very much in danger of being abducted by federal agents without any warrant or charges. My wife and I are scared to know that this man, whom we've helped and we've come to love, and who's worked so hard to succeed in this country, may for no reason be sent back to his death in Iran. My father was a member of the Dutch underground during World War II, and he helped save Jews and other people fleeing Nazi persecution. I met some of the people that he had saved. I never dreamed that I'd be seeing a similar situation in the United States. On November 25th, I witnessed an ICE raid in St. Paul where the agents were threatening to break into a home before they even had a warrant. It was only the angry crowd that was there, and we got pepper sprayed, and the journalists were being targeted by the ICE agents. I could not believe this was the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ryder Hales, then David Booth, Audrey, Rebecca, and Sue. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Ryder Hales, and I live in Ward 7. I'm part of Unidos, and I'm a graduate student at the U of M in the Humphrey School of Public Affairs. I'm here today to encourage the city to pass a strengthened separation ordinance, an essential step to protect communities under attack. The emotional toll, the trauma, the fear and cruelty right now is palpable. The stories from places like Chicago and Portland have been so horrifying for so many of us, and now these attacks are in our own backyard. I go to classes in the Riverside neighborhood, and I can feel the tension in the air. I don't leave my home without a whistle. I'm here at this meeting, taking time out of my busy grad student schedule, because I feel it is my duty to act and protect my community, and I can only hope the council feels the same duty. Minneapolis has this nationwide image as a progressive beacon, but how can that be the case when everyday people are scared to go to work or school, or even attend mosque for daily prayers? The city can talk the talk about being this progressive beacon, but to walk the walk, it must strengthen this ordinance. This is also an essential way to restore trust between residents and the police, which we know is a strained relationship to say the least. I was also at the November 25th raid in East St. Paul, where dozens of St. Paul officers in full riot gear used force to suppress the peaceful protest. I was one of many who got pepper sprayed that day while complying with all orders, and I was lucky to not get it worse. I watched someone get sprayed point blank in the face in a video that will forever live online. Maybe you've seen it. Chief O'Hara's comments are a good starting point, but unless we want a similar scene here in Minneapolis, the council must support policy that codifies that stance.
Thank you. David Booth, Audrey, Rebecca, Sue, Ariela.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the work you've done to this point on this issue. In recent days, I've been overwhelmed with sorrow and fear, as many of us have been. Federal attacks on immigrant communities are the greatest crisis of my lifetime in Minneapolis. I pray the council doesn't underestimate the gravity of the moment. In ICE, Mr. Trump has established a de facto national police force, overfunded, overarmed, lawless, indecent, masked and malicious, built to harass and intimidate. They mock due process and habeas corpus. On the flimsy pretext of removing criminals, ICE has made whole immigrant communities their first targets. But don't be fooled. These actions are transparently racist and authoritarian. Campaigns of harassment and criminalization will move on to second and third targets. They'll establish surveillance and removal for ideological enemies and other undesirables. This has always been the playbook of authoritarian regimes, from the Germans in World War II to Putin's Russia to Orban's Hungary. I'm frightened for myself and my city, for my children, my neighbors. Appeasing bullies is a losing game, but resistance is possible and absolutely necessary. It starts when individuals, communities, businesses, and local governments refuse to cooperate with authoritarians. So say no for the sake of our neighbors and our children. Let future historians cite our city as a beacon of freedom and courage. Please be the brave leaders we need today. No cooperation with lawless ICE. get rid of the masks, get rid of the non-identification. Thank you.
Next up, we have Audrey F., Rebecca M., Sue J., Ariela T.
Hi, my name is Audrey Fortico. I live in Minneapolis, Ward 12, Standish Erickson, and I'm a leader with Unidos. I'm here to ensure that we pass the strongest possible separation ordinance to protect our communities under federal attacks. As of this year, I am now a dual citizen of France and the United States. I was eligible for my citizenship in this country, in the U.S., for a few years, but it's really the instant fear of the November 2024 election results that triggered my submission to protect myself and my family from any future impact on the immigrant community. The recent ICE activities in Minneapolis sadly validated that fear. Minneapolis is one of the most democratic, progressive, community-centered city. And we need real and effective measures to protect us all. I am scared for my daughter's daycare workers. The majority of daycare in my areas are all Hispanic people, and we've seen them being dragged out of daycares in other cities. It could happen here. So I am scared for them. Our city is in crisis, and I really would like my neighbors, my family, workers in our neighborhood to not be scared of being in our streets, being taken away and kidnapped by masked men without due process. We need bold leaders right now who are willing to step up to protect all of our residents. I urge you to use the power that you have to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca, hi. Then Sue, then Ariela, Erica, and Caspian.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Rebecca Montgomery. I'm in Ward 8 and serve on 2 Unidos committees. A strong separation ordinance is essential for safe communities and healthy relationships between government representatives and the people they serve. I have friends who are immigrants, international students, and U.S. citizens not of European descent who now fear doing basic activities of everyday life based on the ICE tactics we've seen the last week. As a retired military member, I am witness to some of the trauma inflicted in the countries of origin for some members of our immigrant community. It is absolutely shameful that they should face continued persecution in the U.S., especially in a nation that prides itself on a narrative of freedom, promise, and equality. My years in Turkey working for the U.S. government were during a period when the majority of our conversations were about democratic backsliding, slides toward authoritarianism, and the indicators of an increasing police state. I see reflections of these topics in our current moment in the U.S. and am well aware that nations that have overcome attacks on their democracies have done so in part by strengthening legislation and ordinances to codify the foundational relationships necessary to safeguard democratic processes. Police Chief O'Hara recently made statements indicating concerns over the tactics that ICE agents have been using and his intent to protect our community. While I appreciate his words, you need to pass the stronger separation ordinance to translate that intent into specific requirements that provide clear expectations for the community and a guide for law enforcement. We need to ensure that the city resources we have go to the highest needs, not to support robustly funded activities that employ tactics to intimidate, harass, and divide our community and stoke fear. In case you fear highlighting our city, let me be clear, the city's already targeted.
Thank you. Sue Johnson, Ariela, Erica, Caspian, then Dale.
Hi, my name is Sue Johnston. I'm a resident of Marcy Holmes neighborhood in Ward 3. I'm here to ask you to pass and support the strongest possible separation ordinance. Most of my adult life I've lived in Minneapolis except for 1 year when I worked with Doctors Without Borders in Burma, Myanmar, where there was and still is a civil war between the government and the people. I'm horrified and I'm heartbroken to see what happened in Burma happening here in Minneapolis, specifically masked military without identifying badges abducting people, not only our immigrant families, but also, as of this morning, in the case of Susan Tincher, abducting constitutional observers. I'm also horrified to see peaceful protesters being sprayed with chemical irritants in the name of crowd control. And I ask you, I had always thought that in the United States we were better than this and safer than this. So I ask you to support to any extent that you can, this separation ordinance, not only for our immigrant families, but also for all of us whose rights are now being violated. Thank you.
Ariela Tilson, Erica.
Ariela's not here. She asked me to read her statement.
Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. My name is Lily Cooper. I'm a resident of Ward 7, but I will be reading Ariella Tilson's remarks today. Hello, my name is Ariella Tilson. I grew up in Minneapolis and raised a family here. Now I live in the Mill City District in Ward 3. I'm a member of Unidos. I'm here to urge you to support all amendments that strengthen the separation ordinance and to do everything in your power to protect our communities facing raids and unlawful arrests and detentions from federal agents. Over the past weeks, these raids and kidnappings have affected my own family members, neighbors, friends, and colleagues. Some have children who are terrified of going to school and beg to stay home. Adults are fearful about going to work or what this means for the businesses that they own. They already see a drop in business and people not showing up for health appointments or going out to get basics like food, diapers, or medicine. No one wants to live in a city driven by fear. I assume you don't either. Why should we in Minneapolis assist and support lawlessness? Cruelty. Why should we put anyone who lives, works, plays, and goes to school in Minneapolis at such risk? We are at a dangerous precipice. I urge you to lead courageously and with moral authority. Do not give the autocrats more power or let them create more harm for anyone. Do not capitulate to fear, abandon due process and privacy, human and civil rights, and further shred what's left of our democracy. Help make Minneapolis the North Star for this state and the nation. Do it as moral and ethical, and demonstrate to the world that everyone who lives and works here belongs here. Thank you.
Next up, we have Erica, Z, Caspian, then Dale. Oh.
I don't know if anybody wants to bring these up. Just, there was too many of them, so. 2,875 in 2 months.
Welcome.
Hi all, Erica Zarowski, Ward 8, MIRAC member, immigration paralegal. I actually had to change my speech today. I spent the morning calling 7 detention facilities looking for a client who was kidnapped by ICE over the weekend. I say kidnapped. This man paid an ICE bond of $10,000 in May of 2011, has a pending immigration court case and a hearing on January 5th. Yet ICE pulled him over on Saturday morning and sent him to Texas yesterday. Only an attorney was able to find him. No one had heard from him since his disappearance. Had it not been for neighbors who witnessed him taken by masked agents, he would quite literally have disappeared. We are up against an enemy, not the law. If the federal government commits state-sponsored terrorism, then the cities and states of this country must actively reject it. I will speak to MIRAC's demand of non-cooperation with all federal law enforcement for any reason. The ordinance must not distinguish cooperation language for the purpose of enforcing civil immigration laws, because our city leaders need to consider what is coming. Even now, re-entry into the United States is criminalized. What anyone would consider an immigration violation is a federal criminal felony. As written, the ordinance allows local police to help abduct people for this reason, for this immigration violation. So when the government decides to criminalize all immigration, our ordinance will be worthless. We call on city leaders to think strategically and to think ahead. We don't say local police can't ask the feds for help. We do demand MPD never help the feds. They don't need it. I'm sorry, I got it. Like the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 required local police to return captured slaves to the South, and Minneapolis police returned them.
Thanks,
like
Erica.
we need to stand on the right side of history.
Thank you, Erica. Next up, we have Caspian, then Dale, and then Montana, I think, and then Miguel.
Hello. I just want to honor that we're on the homelands of the Dakota and Anishinaabe people. My name is Caspian and I live in Ward 1. I'm a leader with Unidos. I'm here to ensure we pass the strongest separation ordinance. By passing the strongest separation ordinance, you will protect our vulnerable friends and neighbors, prevent further tyrannical overreach, and repair the relationship between city and community. Why is a strong separation ordinance needed? A strong separation ordinance A strong separation between ICE and our city resources can prevent another kind of separation. I've seen how it is nearly impossible to heal from family separation and other impacts of immigration enforcement. A person very near and dear to me was separated as an infant, and as a 35-year-old man now, he still feels the pain of family separation daily. I have Indigenous friends who are being harassed, being told their tribal IDs are fake. I myself have lost my wallet recently, and losing my driver's license, a common mistake, can now have dire consequences. We are all being tortured watching this happen when the city could protect people. When this happens to one of us, it happens to all of us, including you. This week was a betrayal of our sanctuary city status. The crisis is here, and we request you respond boldly with concrete policy deliverables. I encourage you to vote not trying to guess how to avoid punishment from this federal administration, because they will punish anyway. I encourage you to vote by being in solidarity with the people who make our city function. Our immigrant communities are not breaking the law, they are revealing the flaws in our law. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale Johnson. Tina Hirsch, Miguel Hernandez, Andrea Larson.
Hello, Council. My name is Dale Johnson, a Howe resident on Dakota land. I would like to bring up that the images that we've heard and will continue to hear are not just a public safety issue, but a public health issue. My veterans community has watched their benefits be slashed, and our asylum seekers, refugees, have witnessed the same horrors that the veteran community has seen at war. Every 80 minutes, a veteran dies by suicide or mental health related illness. Please keep the community safe and healthy.
Montana, and then Miguel, Andrea Larson, Carly, and then Sophie.
Hi, good afternoon. I speak on behalf of Montana Hirsch, and we are members of the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee. She is an educator at Minneapolis Public Schools and a Minneapolis resident living in Ward 8. I'm speaking for her because it is vital that Minneapolis does more to strengthen the separation ordinance. In the past few weeks, we have seen a Minneapolis that unwaveringly stands with immigrants and will not put up with ICE terrorizing our city. We were glad to hear about Mayor Frey's executive order to ban ICE from using city parking lots and ramps. But this is not enough. We have seen other cities declare ICE-free zones. Minneapolis demands the same. We demand ICE-free zones declared for all city property and not just parking lots and ramps, and it must be codified into law. We have heard Chief O'Hara say that MPD must intervene if ICE officers are using excessive force. This is not enough. We want agents arrested for excessive force and for concealing their faces and badges and their identities. This all needs to be codified and followed by all who work for the city of Minneapolis so that we are doing everything that we possibly can to make ICE feel unwelcome in our city. MIRAC will not rest until these demands are met. Do the right thing. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, City Council. My name is Miguel Hernandez. I am a resident of Ward 12, the owner of Lito's Burritos in Ward 11, a proud member of MIRAC. I would like to start by saying that the voices of our immigrant neighbors and leaders are being pushed into hiding. I asked the room, are they here? This is a sign that we have already failed. I hope I can do them justice. The only separation between me and my people is this and a couple of more numbers. I can't go to work from East Lake Street to West Lake Street without seeing cars every day. My phone won't stop buzzing. This is just a start. If we're arguing about how to start, I only pray that we can find it in this council, in this city, to do more, to just start. We knew this was coming. This is, in a year time, history tells it, 300,000 people who looked like me in the 1930s were taken. Just because, even if they have this, give it a year. Let's see what happens. Start now, at least.
Andrea Larson, Carly, Sophie.
Hi, my name is Andrea Larson. I live in Ward 13, and I'm here with Unidos. This is not my first time at the podium after having worked at the city for 6 years, but it is my first time speaking as a resident, and I'm here to ensure we pass the strongest separation ordinance possible. The last week with federal agents trolling our city has been an incredibly scary time. Obviously, this is the most true for our immigrant neighbors. In addition to the deepest sorrow I feel for the people being targeted, I'm incredibly worried about the fear this is stoking in our communities. In my time working at the city on public safety before, during, and after 2020, I understand deeply that no one can be at their best while living in fear. I believe all of our council members and our mayor want to protect our immigrant neighbors and our entire community who will be impacted by the terror brought on from these federal activities. I also know from personal experience working at the city that sometimes the fear of making change gets in the way of doing what's right. I understand that you're working hard with the city attorney to make sure that your proposed language meets legal standards. The city attorney's job is to protect the city enterprise from risk, and to do that, they make conservative interpretations of the law. But I urge you to remember that they provide you with recommendations, not decisions. Your jobs are to listen to that advice and then take calculated risks that are in the best interest of your constituents and all residents of the city. If you're feeling afraid or anxious or worried about the language in the ordinance meeting a legal standard, I'm standing here today asking you as a resident to take a risk and a leap through strong language in the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Carly. And then we have Sophie, Leah, and then it might be Connor, but I can't. We'll get to it.
Okay, good afternoon, City Council. My name is Carly Stadom Liang. I live in Linden Hills in Ward 13, and I'm a leader with Unidos as well. I'm here to encourage City Council to pass the strongest separation ordinance possible. As a mother of young children who attend a Catholic school and church, my kids have already been traumatized by the Annunciation shooting and have been afraid to go to school mass. And now they are afraid that ICE will show up at our Catholic church or their school, like they've shown up at other Catholic institutions in our community. So I'm so frustrated that my children and all children in Minneapolis now have another thing to be afraid about when they go to school, to their church, or to their mosque. I'm also an immigration attorney and have represented parents and children who were separated at the border under Trump's previous family separation policy and have seen firsthand the terrible impact of family separation. And I'm so devastated that ICE is now here in my own community separating parents from their children, even leaving young children behind in cars in freezing weather after taking their parent away. In addition, being on local immigration attorney listservs and with my work with Unidos, I've heard other terrible stories of ICE misconduct in the Twin Cities, of ICE detaining a U.S. citizen overnight despite having a U.S. passport, of an ICE Watch volunteer having a gun pulled on her by ICE agents, and of a teenager in active family court proceedings being detained and separated from his parent, despite this being against ICE policy. Based on these incidents and many more than I have time to describe, we know that our community is in crisis, and I therefore call on council to lead boldly. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophie Callahan. And then again, Leah Robshaw Robinson, and then I believe Connor Smith.
Hello, my name is Reverend Sophie Callahan, and I'm a fourth-generation resident of Linden Hills in Ward 13 and a leader with Unidos. I'm urging you to enforce the strongest possible separation ordinance. As a Christian clergy member, I take seriously one of the clearest commandments across our scriptures, to welcome the stranger. Every person, documented or not, immigrant or not, religious or not, has sacred worth, and each neighbor is worthy of love, dignity, and safety in this city we call home. ICE's tactics violate people's dignity. We've heard of people afraid to go to school or work. My own kids, protected supposedly by citizenship and privilege, still express fear as I've gone to observe ICE in the community. Whether ICE shows up in Linden Hills or in East Phillips, it's harmful for all of us because we belong to one another. I'm heartened by neighbors who are keeping watch at immigrant-owned restaurants or raising donations for lost wages, showing up with courage and compassion. And now I'm asking you, as our elected officials, to please show up with courage and compassion. Demonstrate the moral leadership that this moment requires. By putting real protections in place, Minneapolis can show the federal government and the nation that our strength comes from our diverse and vibrant community. We can choose boldly to resist fear, to welcome the stranger, and to treat one another as God's beloved. Thank you.
Leah, then Connor Smith.
Hello, council members. My name is Leah Robshaw Robinson, and I live in Ward 13. I'm here to ensure that we pass the strongest separation ordinance possible. The targeted ICE activity in Minneapolis this past week against our immigrant community and our Somali American neighbors has sent ripples of stress and fear into all corners of our city. I'm scared for the safety of my colleagues and my loved ones, and I keep asking myself, what can I do to keep Minneapolis safe? On Sunday, I decided to get takeout at Carmel Mall. This felt like one small, very small, unspoken act of solidarity that I could do. Most of the shops were not open. I found one restaurant serving lunch and ordered meals for my family from the woman at the cash register. When my food was ready, she brought it out to me, and as she handed me the bag, she gave me a hug and said, "Thank you, my sister." I wanted to respond by saying, "It's going to be okay. Minneapolis is going to hold strong against unconstitutional ICE activity." But all I could say was, "Take good care." We are calling on you, our city council members, who we elected to lead our city. You have the power to protect us by passing stronger separation ordinances. Fear is a powerful thing, and it can and will be used against us. We know from history what will happen if we do not fight for each other and protect each other in this moment. Your courage will send ripples of hope across the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Connor Smith, Alvin Sheng, Alexandria K.
Hello, my name's Connor Smith. I'm a resident of Ward 13, a member of Twin Cities DSA, and a leader of the Unidos. Last week, one of our friends called my wife sobbing to explain that she couldn't visit our home that day because her best friend had been abducted by ICE and they didn't yet know where she was. The fear, anxiety, and uncertainty caused by ICE activity in our community underscores the importance of passing strengthened separation ordinance. I urge the City Council to pass the amended ordinance so that we can reassure our community and our city that we will do everything possible to protect our vulnerable friends, neighbors, and family members. Thank you.
Alvin, Alexandria, and then Elizabeth Burgett.
Hi, my name is Solange. I'm reading the speech of Alvin Sheng from Ward 2, who was here earlier. We're both members of MIRAC, the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee. The last several months have been a terrifying time for our city, particularly for our immigrant neighbors. We have watched the full force of the federal government be wielded to terrorize immigrants and trample their allies. HSI and ICE have kidnapped our neighbors in broad daylight with no accountability. The FBI, DEA, and other federal law enforcement agencies have been incentivized to support ICE in these heinous acts. It is critical that Minneapolis' separation ordinance functions as designed to ensure that our local police do not become another tool used by Trump's regime to suppress dissent and spread fear. Other cities around the state and the country are looking to Minneapolis to demonstrate what real leadership looks like on this issue. Our police are sworn to serve and protect the people of Minneapolis, and that should include protection from an authoritarian federal government that seeks to punish any and all opposition to their racist, unjust deportation machine. We demand no collusion between our police and ICE, no crowd control by our police at anti-ICE protests, no face coverings by any law enforcement officer in our city, including federal agents, and real consequences for all violations of this ordinance. Real sanctuary now. Thank you.
Alexandra K. Elizabeth B. Then Christian B. And then we'll try to beat that.
My name is Alexandria Kwame. I am a longtime resident of Minneapolis in the Bryant neighborhood, and I am here to ask City Council members to vote for this enforced ordinance. I ask you to work towards real sanctuary because our members of our community need it now. I also would like to voice my appreciation and support for the previous hearing to really provide compassionate and humane response to our unhoused neighbors and real systemic solutions. My daughter is 20 years old. She is at the U of M. Her father is an immigrant who immigrated here 20 years ago. Since February, she has been questioning her safety, and she has been questioning the solidity of her citizenship. Recently, a student org at the U of M notified students that the colleges and universities are considered public spaces. This makes it fair game for immigration enforcement to invade our schools. We've already experienced a student who was kidnapped earlier this year, and just over the weekend, an Augsburg student has been targeted. I am asking you to strengthen the Sanctuary City Ordinance to create safe spaces for our children so that they can learn without fear of being taken from their classrooms. I recently saw ICE agents at a preschool near my house, and it shook me to the core. And they did not take anybody at that moment, but it's just a matter of time. Please.
Thank you. Next up, we have Elizabeth B., Christian B., and then it might say Paul.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Burgett. I live in Ward 8 at 43rd and Oakland, and I'm a member of Unidos. I'm here to ask that this City Council do everything in its power to pass the strongest possible separation ordinance. When I first moved to Minneapolis 20 years ago, one of the reasons I chose to live here was that it is a sanctuary city. As an ELL teacher, I have worked closely with immigrant and refugee communities, both here and in East Africa. I've seen firsthand how hard life is for immigrants, both before and after they arrive in the U.S. In these past months of increased ICE activity, I've been heartbroken to witness the present-day fear my immigrant friends and neighbors are experiencing after already living a lifetime of trauma. I have Minneapolis friends, even citizens and others who are here legally, who have kept kids home from school or stayed home from religious gatherings out of fear of ICE activity. I know many Minneapolis teachers who are working as fast as they can to come up with ways to protect their students without disrupting learning, on top of already very full plates. There's a fear and wariness in the air that flies in the face of what it means to be a sanctuary city, and it's devastating to watch the rich vibrancy of our city's diverse community disintegrate in real time. With the recent demonization of Somalis coming from the current administration, the strong uptick of federal agents in the metro area, including 100 ICE incidents recently, and small immigrant-owned businesses struggling to stay afloat in times that are already financially stressful, we are in an unprecedented moment. What we've feared is here at our doorstep. It's time for this council to do whatever it can to protect our immigrant community here in Minneapolis.
Thank you. And next up, we have Christian B., and then Paul R., and then Pablo Romano.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm the Reverend Christian Briones. I'm an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ. I'm here today voicing my support for a stronger separation ordinance. Over the past several months, we have watched ICE and federal agents hop out of unmarked vehicles with their faces covered to whisk people away. They violated the civil rights of the people they detain. There have been several instances of ICE and federal agents pulling their firearms and pointing them at unarmed civilians. They unleashed an attack dog on a U.S. citizen just a couple days ago. They have used chemical agents on a sitting member of Congress, and we have even seen ICE tear gas local law enforcement. If this was any other group of people running around doing this who was not protected by the federal government, they would have the label of a terrorist organization. The degree of lawlessness and violence federal agents are bringing into cities across the country and into our communities is damnable. Agencies and officers whose tactics are violence and criminal behavior cannot be trusted to deter violence and criminal behavior. If they want to do away with violent criminals in our communities, they themselves can pack up their bags and their weapons and crawl back into the pits of hell from which they came. This city's Somali and Latino and all black and brown communities is a part of what makes this city great, the great city that it is, and we deserve to live and thrive here with dignity, here in our home. I'm hoping and I'm praying you support a stronger sanctuary separation ordinance to further ensure the safety of black and brown communities in the city. Thank you.
Next person, we think it says Paul, but okay, great. Paul, and then Pablo Romano, and then Byron Richard.
My name is Paul Roziski, Ward 11. I'm a leader with Unidos. My son's friends from Africa are being demonized and put in harm's way, and that pisses me off. They're the nicest, friendliest young people. They come into our home and are welcomed and respected, but when they go outside, they are not respected or welcomed by the President of the United States. Now, he is threatening with ICE cruelly, and these good young men need Minneapolis to protect them. I take this very personally because my father gladly put his life on the line in World War II to save our country and freedom and democracy around the world. He was willing to die for that. And now Donald Trump is doing the opposite. And it's the same thing Hitler and Mussolini did. Trump is attacking an outside group and attempting to drive people apart so that a select few could rule over the rest of the world. His new national security strategy, right from Project 2025, is a plan by enemies of democracy to rule the world. Trump and his right-wing allies are scapegoating immigrants, and this is around the world, and stoking fear to pit people against people to destroy democracy. But this also opens an opportunity for our local government to step up and a beacon of what democracy looks like and protect that here. For the love and protection of democracy and people here and everywhere, and to honor my father's generation, I strongly urge, okay, you get the point.
Thank you. Pablo Romano, Byron Richard, Solane Walker. And if we miss you, we can come back to you. I won't mark an X. But if Pablo isn't here, we'll go on to Byron Richard. I know. He's gone. Okay, gone. Okay. Okay, Solane Walker. Hammond. Oh, hi.
Hi there. I'm here to thank you for these proposed amendments to strengthen the separation ordinance and to encourage you to pass them and continue doing anything you can in the future to make sure these are the strongest ordinances possible and that there are real consequences if anybody does not comply with the terms of these ordinances. I really don't want to live in a city where masked federal agents can jump out of an unmarked car and abduct people. So thank you for your action on this, and let's keep staying one step ahead of these creeps and know that, like, whatever you can do that's the boldest action that we can take to prevent this happening in our city, we've got your back. We're out here. I was out in the cold last night chanting and crying and dancing with people. We care about this. We care about our neighbors. So thank you for your work, and let's keep it going.
Ty Grant, and then Aaron Steen, and then Zainab Jama.
Good afternoon, council members. I am Ty Grant. I live in Ward 1. I'm a proud business owner of Body of the Earth Wellness in Ward 7. And I am here to, also as a veteran, to ask you to really, step up and pass the amended sanctuary ordinance because it really does highlight what we are about, and in the way that Trump's administration is coming against laws and has no problem upping their game and their rhetoric. I ask that you please pass this ordinance with the strongest language possible. Thank you.
Next up, we have Aaron Steen, and then Zainab Jama, and then if you sign up to Zainab Jama, please let me know, and we're going to try to read the name.
I'm good to go? Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Erin Steeney, and I am a resident of Ward 12, a member of the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee, a senior program officer at a Minneapolis-based nonprofit, and almost one semester away from finishing my Master's of Public Affairs at the Humphrey School. I'm really tired. In addition to working full-time and carefully monitoring the many rapid response chats I'm a part of, on a weekly basis, I also read 200 pages of dense academic articles and court cases assigned for my very last elective of grad school, which is on disruptive governance, democracy, and the Constitution. Unsurprisingly, this class is focused on the Trump administration's actions. One of our first assignments was to read the book How Democracy Dies, which outlines the path to and criteria for authoritarianship. Council members, I regret to inform you that we are there. As we watch our country's surreal slide into authoritarianism, our city is ill-equipped to protect our immigrant neighbors due to an outdated separation ordinance. Without the proposed amendments, both those included in what was presented earlier today and those proposed by Councilmember Wansley, my immigrant neighbors are needlessly vulnerable because the city has not gone far enough. Since this meeting began around 1:50, another raid occurred in our city. I watched on a live feed as masked agents pepper sprayed nonviolent community members who did not hesitate to stop what they were doing to support their neighbors. And it's going to keep happening and getting worse. So let's do something.
Next up was Zainab Jama, or is it Zainab Jama? And if you can correct me, that would be great. And then Lillian, and then Kate Vickery.
Hi, I hope folks can hear me. My name is Zainab, and I work, good afternoon, Chair Chavez and council members. My name is Zainab, and I work at Yada Leads, a nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing civic participation, leadership, and political power within the African diaspora here in Minnesota. I'm here today to speak in support of a strong and uncompromising separation ordinance, one that fully and clearly prevent any form of collaboration between local government and federal immigration enforcement. Right now in Cedar Riverside, ICE is literally kidnapping our Somali neighbors. Families are scared to leave their homes. Young people are afraid to walk to schools or work. Elders jump, and at every expected knock on the door, the fear is real and is growing every single day. This issue is deeply personal to me as a Somali American myself, as someone who grew up in Ward 6, and as someone who has worked in the communities that has been pushed to a margin. Our communities deserve to feel safe. They deserve to call 911 without a fear, and they deserve to get access to city services, go to school, go to work, go to mosque, and work and move through their daily lives without risk of detention and deportation. So I urge today for the City Council to act urgently without a hesitation. Our immigrant communities, our Somali communities, and Latinos communities deserve to live in a city without the fear of walking in the street every day. So thank you.
Next up, we have Lillian. Lillian. And then Kate Vickery. And then I'll ask the public, we are running out of time. And if we end up running out of time, we might have to figure out what this means for the ordinance, if we might have to adjourn to another date. So I just want to make sure that folks go into that knowing about the public testimony, and we're hearing you all very loud and clear.
Cool. Hi, I'm back. Kate Vickery, still in Ward 11. In support of this stronger separation ordinance. I have a genuine question. I was talking about euphemisms. I'm curious to know if any of the council members have ever been in an immigration detention center.
We can't answer that, but we have, yes.
Okay, so detention center is another euphemism, right? These are horrible prisons, unfit for human habitation. In 2019, I stood in an immigration jail surrounded by women whose children had been kidnapped by ICE during the first Trump administration as they sought asylum in the United States. I still have nightmares about that room that day. And what's happening in our streets right now is part of that same machine. Every arrest, every deportation, every attack on our immigrant neighbors is another family separation. I need my tax dollars to serve and protect all of us. And I really appreciate what everybody has said about taking risks. Every amendment that's offered here that strengthens our separation ordinance is good. And even aspects that feel risky to you are the most important thing that we can do. We need to unmask the agents, ensure that not one public dollar supports the deportation machine, and not accept anyone, including the mayor, suggesting that it's okay for MPD to provide crowd control for immigration actions. Unless our police force is there to protect us from ICE's violence, then they shouldn't be involved at all. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Jesse Mortensen. And then Bjorn Long, and then Meg Riley. I just want to let the public know it's looking that we might have to adjourn this meeting till tomorrow, which means we won't take a vote, given that there's so many people testifying, which is a good thing. But I just want to make sure folks know. Thank you.
I'll be brief. Hello, council members. I just want to say thank you for the additional language added to the ordinance. I was very concerned about the sort of crowd control loophole, so I appreciate an example being added there in that language. I would maybe add another example, too, because I feel like that's going to be the most likely problematic space. But it's good to see that. And also want to note that since I've heard that we're in the overspending budgets mood, I think Unidos could use more money. I've heard that as well. I don't know if they need 20 million, but maybe 2 million would be great. So thank you.
Jordan Long, Meg Riley, Alicia.
Hi, I'll be really brief. Thanks so much. I did some door knocking this summer or this fall, and I'm sure you all experienced this. One of the biggest concerns people in the city have is ICE. Even in the local elections, they really wanted to make sure that they were electing someone who was going to do everything in their power to keep our people safe. Your constituents are out there in the streets doing everything in their power to help our neighbors, so we're counting on all of you to do the same. Thank you.
Meg Riley. And then Alicia, and then Doug, and then Sajira Shahid. Hola. We're trying to figure out interpretation component. Yes, we do.
Okay. I'm just going to read it for her. My name is Alicia Robles. I am here representing not only the Latino community, but the broader Minneapolis community, of which I have been part of for over 42 years. I would also like to draw attention to the deportations and suffering of immigrants and their families. To this end, it is useful to understand their experience within a social context. What does this say about a community that causes harm to a particular ethnic group? And what about the indifference displayed by so many in our midst with regard to this harm? I would like to be assured that our state leaders are on our side and poised to support us.
Gracias, thank you. Then we have Doug with the C, last name. Sagira.
My name is Sagira Shahid. I'm a member of MAPE. I'm a member of the Minnesota Labor for Palestine, and I'm a Black Muslim. I'm here because I'm in support of a stronger ordinance, one that does not cooperate with ICE. And I'm here because I am not an immigrant. My ancestors were kidnapped from the shores of West and Central Africa, and they were enslaved and forced to build the wealth of this nation. And as a Black Muslim, whose ancestors fought for civil liberties for all people, it is a shame that we are having ICE kidnap people and recreating harms that generational communities have fought so hard to protect. No cooperation with ICE. I'm here because so many in the Muslim community are afraid. So many in the Latino community, the Afghan, the Somali community could not be here today because they're being kidnapped blocks away. The students are afraid. The faculty are afraid. You need to do more to protect us against this authoritarian regime. No cooperation. Support the amendments that Robin has suggested and protect our communities from this regime. It is a shame upon our communities. Again, I'm here because I am not an immigrant. My ancestors built these civil liberties that open up pathways for all marginalized communities, and on the grave of Harriet Tubman, and on my ancestors' work and labor. And as a Muslim, I call upon all labor unions, all African diasporic peoples, all Muslims, all human beings with open hearts to fight against ICE, and I ask all of you to do the same. Use all of your power. Resist Trump, resist this regime, and resist ICE. Do not help them.
Catherine, and then Emma, and then Ben. Catherine. All right. Emma. Ziegler. All right. Ben K. Hi.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ben, and I am a student. As someone who believes the people of Minneapolis have proven themselves to be some of the most welcoming in this country, but knows that our laws must reflect that compassion with utmost strength and clarity, and someone who believes that anything less than this ordinance will continue to chill the daily public and civic participation of people and communities who live in fear of constant surveillance and policing, and someone who believes that safe communities rely on trust that law enforcement is there to protect them and listen to them, and not to cooperate with ICE to deport them. I speak for the many students who are too scared to make themselves a target, and I urge the passage of the revised separation ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Munir Sabia, and then Jada Brown, and then Sophia.
Hello, my name is Emma. I'm a resident of Ward 5, and I'm here to voice my support for the separation ordinance while also highlighting the importance of reporting. So ICE must leave our city as soon as possible, but while they're here, they must be required to report their activities every single day. The ordinance seems to ask, when I read it, that city public safety personnel are deployed. That's when we get reporting, but that's not enough. We should also be requiring reports from ICE themselves on their activities every single day. We should know who they take and where they take them. Our federal judges, our police department, and your council should be expecting full reports from ICE on their activities. It's an utmost importance that they leave as soon as possible, ICE gets out of our community, and also that we know what they're doing while they're here. Transparency is the cornerstone of democracy. A mass secret police that operates without any reporting requirement in our city is horrific and unacceptable. People are taken away without any due process, and it's impossible to track them after they've been stolen. They entirely disappear. Down the line, as we deal with the consequences of ICE in our community, all the information we gather now will be imperative to enacting justice and their due process. We have a right to know where our neighbors are and where they're going, and we should be expecting reports daily from ICE themselves.
Next up we have Munir Sabia, and then Jada Brown, and then Sophia M. Munir Sabia. Jada Brown. Jada Brown. Sophia M.
Hello, my name is Sophia Manolis. I'm a resident from Ward 9, and I'm testifying because I support the strongest possible separation ordinance, and I think the city needs to be doing as much as possible to be protecting the families who are at threat of being kidnapped and protecting and supporting the families who are already being impacted by ICE. I and many of my neighbors are supporting families right now, and I'm supporting a family whose house was stormed by ICE a few days ago. It was a family with kids, and their parents were kidnapped, and the kids had to watch while ICE broke down the front door and then broke in the bedroom doors. And this is not just heartbreaking, this is deeply traumatizing. When I was a kid, I had nightmares for years about somebody breaking into my house and abducting me or my parents, and that didn't even happen to me. So it's like, these are children in our community, and these are our neighbors and the people that make this community what it is. And so how are we also helping them deal with the trauma of these incidents? And how are we supporting our community to work through this crisis, not just by abstaining from supporting ICE activity and from cooperating with ICE activity, but also in protecting our neighbors?
Thank you. Next up we have Seema S, and then Nina B, and then a letter written by Mim. Welcome. If I said your name wrong, please correct me.
I'm Elizabeth Balsoni. I'm speaking on behalf of Seema Shakshari. My name is Seema. I work in Ward 2 as a professor at University of Minnesota. I immigrated to the United States 36 years ago from Iran, and I'm a green card holder. I constantly live in fear, not only because ICE has been targeting immigrants from countries that the Trump administration deems of concern and has announced they will be re-examining our green cards, but also as a Palestine liberation activist who has been subjected to a hate campaign, death threats, for speaking up against the genocide. The police were not helpful to protect me then, and I'm not sure if they would protect me if ICE appeared at my door. I've had to move my classes online when there have been ICE kidnappings close to my place of work. I'm extremely worried about my immigrant students and undocumented students who are scared to come to campus. ICE kidnappings have affected my immigrant students' mental health and education. A recent email from the university instructs faculty and staff to call 911 if there is a civil disobedience in case of ICE raids. This makes me and my immigrant students wonder if UMPD or MPD would actually help ICE or protect us. I encourage you to protect our immigrant students, faculty, and staff by passing a strong separation ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up we have Nina Bergland, and then a letter being read by Mem, which we will not, mention names. Nina Bergland, otherwise the letter can be read now. And we can also wait for Nina to show up after that.
Perfect. I am here to read the letter on behalf of Meme. I am a member of the Minnesota immigrant movement. For the past 30 years living in Minneapolis, the police have never protected the Hispanic, Somali, Black, or in general any community member with brown skin. I've always been involved and have advocated for the immigrant community and for the needs that arise from the injustice we face. We are hardworking people, and we do the jobs that many others are not willing to do. There is no dignity, no respect, and no accountability for the injustices our community experiences every day. This is why I support the ordinance. Because if the police do not respect or protect the residents, it is better that they do not come near us. Every time they are involved, we are mistreated, and this creates even more distrust, making it impossible for us to collaborate with them, and we are very afraid. Thank you.
Next up, we have Deborah Z, and then nobody else is signed up. So then we would go into closed session. Or try. And try.
Hi, my name is Deborah Zvosek, and I'm from Ward 13. And I urge you to pass the strongest possible ordinance with real enforcement of the conditions. I'm here because I responded to an ICE raid this morning and heard about this meeting from a neighbor, like so many people who are out protecting other people. I stand here for our neighbors, our friends, our fellow human beings in support of constitutional rights and due process for all. Peaceful, nonviolent opposition to the authoritarian takeover we are experiencing on so many fronts is imperative for all of us and our shared humanity. We are all responding to alerts to protect our neighbors, and I'm here to do my small part to hold the line. I thank everyone for being here, and I urge everyone to get your friends out to do the same. I stand for peace and humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else is signed up for the public hearing, which means that we will attempt to try to go into closed session. So I will now close the public hearing and move our discussion until after we receive the closed session. Before I close the meeting, I will recognize City Attorney Anderson to provide the legal basis for the requested closed sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council members, the next items on the agenda are the cases of City and County of San Francisco et al. Versus Trump et al. And United States of America versus State of Minnesota et al. Your lawyers wish to provide a briefing to the council on these litigation matters. Accordingly, under the Minnesota Open Meeting Law, Minnesota Statute, Section 13D.05, Subdivision 3B, the council may, upon a proper motion, close the meeting for the purposes of attorney-client communication as permitted by the attorney-client privilege. In considering the motion, the council should weigh the right of the public to know what its government is doing against the need of the city to preserve its confidentiality of its discussions with its attorneys.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. Before I move that, I want to let the public know we are thankful for your public testimony. It was really appreciated. The various calls, emails, and communication you all have been given our offices helped us draft additional changes to this ordinance, so we are really thankful for your continued engagement. I now move that our public meeting be closed as authorized under the provision of the open meeting law, specifically Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05, for the purpose of receiving a briefing on 2 litigation matters. The first being a brief related to the United States of America versus the state of Minnesota and others, and the other being is the city and county of San Francisco and others versus Trump and others. May I have a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? That carries. For the viewing public, I will note that the broadcast of this meeting will continue in the committee of the whole, will reconvene in public after we conclude in closed session. I now move to close the public portion of our meeting. Thank you.